we had an info session a couple of weeks ago where I talked at length about what the progressive model of education really is on sort of a broader scale. So tonight, I want to talk about that briefly. I want to talk about what it's going to look like very specifically at the Village School. And then I really want to answer questions that people have. I've been talking to a lot of parents over the last few weeks and feel like people have a lot of questions that we can answer at this point. So I want to be able to do that. Oh, I'm so glad my cat has decided to visit for this. It's very perfect. So the Village School is embracing a progressive model of education. So this is a pedagogical movement that values experience over learning facts. It's a philosophy that says that educators should teach children how to think rather than relying on rote memorization. The process of learning by doing is really at the heart of this style of teaching. So this concept, which is known as experiential learning, comprises of learning activities both inside and outside the classroom that are designed to actively engage students to learn by doing and then reflecting on the process and experience and actively creating their own understanding. So rather than reading about it or hearing about it or watching a video of it, the learning is actually being done by doing with it and by engaging either inside or outside of the classroom. So what does this look like in practice? This looks like in science class, if we're learning about ecosystems, we're going to spend a lot of time at the South Orange Duck Pond learning about a freshwater ecosystem where there are communities of organisms that are dependent on each other and with the water environment for their nutrients and their survival. So the children might collect pond water and organisms and plants and bring that back to the classroom to observe in the classroom. And essentially, in a really hands-on way, they're learning about how a healthy ecosystem depends on the interrelationship of all of these parts working together. It means that in social studies, if we're learning about communities, we're walking into town with clipboards and trip sheets where the kids are asked to make a map of the block surrounding the school and write the names of businesses and sketch buildings and record observations of real people. And then they come back into the classroom and they talk about their notes and they analyze their research and they figure out what's next. Maybe it's doing a study that's particularly focused on the post office, which is going to lead to interviewing a lot more people and essentially learning about how the entire mail system works. So this kind of learning allows kids to really delve deeply into different subject areas and to spend long periods of time on a particular subject. The Village School is also going to embrace the project approach, which is sort of an extension of this kind of learning, but the studies culminate in an actual project where the children's research and the connections they've made during the study are expressed through art or maybe public speaking presentation or written report. Projects can be individual or they can be group. So one example of how this might look, let's say the kids are doing a Hudson River study. In their research portion of the learning, they're going to learn that the Hudson River, starts in the Adirondacks and it goes down to the Atlantic Ocean at New York Harbor. They're going to learn about Henry Hudson, who it's named after, although it was previously explored by Verrazano. And we're going to be learning about the European explorers. We're going to learn about the indigenous people who inhabited the area around the river ages before the Europeans came in. We're going to learn about how the Dutch colonized that area, about various freshwater fish and the rock formations and the mountain ranges. And it's going to sort of culminate in the kids building a model of the Hudson River where all of these pieces of information are created. So you're going to see the mountain ranges. They're going to see sort of where the Lenape and the Mohegans and the Algonquins lived and how they lived and the different geological formations. They might learn about glaciers and how that sort of formed parts of the river, or the parts of the river where it becomes sort of a tidal estuary. So this is a really, really rich subject that pulls in, you know, a wide range of subjects and then culminates in this really months-long creation of a project where what they've learned and researched is being sort of expressed in this different way. So this learning really enables the development of a variety of capabilities, such as planning and teamwork and coping with stressful situations potentially, and responsibility and leadership. So that's a very broad sort of overview of the progressive model and the project approach. But it's also really important to talk about where published curriculums have a place in a school. And this is especially true when it comes to math and language arts. So what is a published curriculum? It's sanctioned and approved for classroom delivery, right? It was created by curriculum planners and policymakers who determine how to implement state standards. They're subject specific. So at the Village School, for math, we're going to apply the investigations program, which is a math curriculum that's used throughout public and private schools. It's, I think, one of the best published curriculums for math that exists. It's a very focused, coherent, rigorous K-5 math curriculum. It's fully aligned to the content and practice standards of the Common Core standards. And deep and really careful attention is paid to mathematics content and to student thinking and understanding. And probably the most important piece is that making sense of mathematics is the heart of this work for students and for teachers. For language arts, we're going to use a couple of different published materials. One is Wilson Foundations. Foundations is really a recognized leader in a multisensory structured language program. It provides research-based materials and strategies that are really an essential piece of a comprehensive reading, spelling, and handwriting program. It lays the groundwork for lifelong literacy and includes skills like phonemic awareness and phonics and a word study and reading vocabulary and comprehension strategies, handwriting and spelling. And it's supplemented very nicely with another curriculum called Words Their Way, which is a developmental spelling, phonics, and vocabulary program that really encourages young children to actively construct their own knowledge of spelling patterns. For reading and writing, we're going to utilize the Teachers College Readers and Writers Workshop. So the Writers Workshop model is a student-centered framework for teaching writing that's based on the idea that students learn to write best when they write frequently for extended periods of time and on topics of their own choosing. A Readers Workshop is a teaching model that allows students to engage in authentic reading experiences. So the workshops vary in length and include time for teaching, for selecting and reading books, for writing about books, for sharing ideas about books with partners, or in small groups. So I've already outlined social studies and science piece in the last presentation, which can definitely be accessed, I talked a lot about the importance of a really strong social emotional curriculum. And the final piece that a number of parents have asked me about over the last week is where assessment fits into this. And I think assessment is most meaningful for the child and for the parent when it's authentic and when it's rich and when it's detailed. So we're going to probably do something along the lines of growth reports, which contain information about the skills and the content areas that were taught during each reporting period, the student's performance in each area, and then teacher comments regarding the student's social and emotional growth. So each one builds upon the next, and progress is tracked in really more sort of detailed, organized, meaningful ways. So that's sort of our broad overview. I would love to hear if anybody has questions that either are specific to our plans. Like Kelly said, I only recently came on, so if there's anything I can't answer about the sort of behind the scenes workings, I will definitely pass it over to Kelly. So Jeannie, hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
Thank you for the information. It sounds so impressive. It makes me want to go back to school again. Yeah, it wasn't the way I went to school, 20, 30 years ago. My son is going to be in the 4th grade. He's in public school. And, this year, because it's remote learning, I've been able to observe him and the teacher. And he's a great test taker. So I think he's just, does well in school. But I've seen the teaching and he's becoming a black and white thinker, where he can do well on exam, test, always ace it, but he's not a good writer. And he doesn't add a lot of detail in his writing. He'll write 1 or 2 sentences and he thinks it's done. So I think he'll have some difficulties with writing opinion or, expressive essay. Would there be but it seems like, with your curriculum, would there be potential to have help in those areas too if he's falling behind or not doing well? Or is it just the speed of just,
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I sort of have a lot of thoughts there. So yeah, number one is our classes are going to be really small, intentionally so that there can be a really individualized approach. So some kids are going to need support, in terms of like extra support, and others are going to need to be challenged more, right? And the idea with these really small classes and with this model is you're really able to meet children where they are and give them what they need. And sort of a little bit of your description reminds me of my oldest son, who does very well in school with minimal effort. And the thing that concerns me about him is that he doesn't understand what it's like to work hard because he doesn't have to. And I do feel like he is going to, like, when he's faced with a challenge, he doesn't sit with it and problem solve and think about it, because that's not something he has to do very often. And whereas I think about my 10-year-old who has a really different school experience where kind of has to work hard at everything, and in many ways that's going to serve him better because he's not scared of hard work. He's not afraid to apply himself because it's all he knows. And when he's in college, he's going to know how to really stick with something. I think my 12-year-old, if he was really engaged and excited and challenged, like, we could really see what he could do. And I think maybe high school, maybe college, we'll get to see that. So I understand your concerns. And I also think writing it's really important to know sort of how to do well, right? And it does start in these early years and then builds, and hopefully there's like a high school with a really strong writing. But we want kids to be really strong public speakers, readers, and writers for sure. So I hope that answers your question. Sort of
absolutely. How big is the classes for, let's say, a 4th grade class?
Right. So we're gonna do multi-age classes, definitely for the first year. But I'm hoping that there is a multi-age component throughout because I think it's so great for kids, and sort of the research consistently tells us how kids benefit from a multi-age learning environment. We definitely would not exceed, I'm going to say 10 to 12 kids per group with 2 teachers. Fewer than, and this, Kelly, jump in if if this doesn't sound accurate to you. I think fewer than probably 6 to 7 might be 1 teacher. The 3rd and 4th grade is turning into the largest group, actually. So we would, there's a lot of people that are really interested in that age group for this year. So, but I wouldn't want to exceed, like I said, 10 to 12 per group with 2 teachers. Can I answer anything else for you? Oh, Kelly, I think your microphone's off.
I'm muted.
Oh.
Yeah, we had said as a student-teacher ratio, that we don't want to exceed having more than 10 students for 1 teacher.
Right.
So that's the way that we're approaching, thinking about, making that work so that the teacher can actually really focus in on individual students.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeannie, can we answer anything else for you right now? You can also please email me like tonight or tomorrow, and we can talk.
Yeah.
We can talk more together.
Yeah. And once they finish 5th grade, would it be difficult for them to transfer or go back to public school?
Right.
Like what kind of documents would we need?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So do you mean sort of in terms of like the administrative piece, or do you mean in terms of the kids' transition?
Yeah, not the transition, like if for 6th grade we go back to public school, private school, would you provide all the documents,
certainly,
everything, like transcript, whatever we need? Right?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
So it would be like an easy transitions in terms of the paperwork.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
For sure. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. What else?
I feel like a related question that's come up a lot, several times that I've heard this week, has been, will you be accredited? I just wanted to raise that as maybe, I'm not sure if that's also part of what you were thinking, Jeannie, because that question has come up in the context of, making sure that our kids will be able to succeed in later schools and be welcomed, and excel in those schools.
Any other questions?
Hi, everybody. Hi. I don't have a question. I just want to tell you that, I'm a retired early childhood director. And when I heard about Reggio Emilia and a school, I was overwhelmed with enthusiasm. So I just had to plug in and give you a kudo, because all my life, I did Reggio in nursery school, but all my life I wished that it had transferred into the elementary school. And I am so delighted that you guys are doing this. I'm just overwhelmed with enthusiasm. So I wish you the very, very best. You're doing the very best program that a child could get, between the project orientation and the Reggio, and I'm just completely overwhelmed with joy. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. Where did you work? What school was it?
Prospect Co-op in Maplewood. I was the director there for 40 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I also taught at Kean, like you did with the student teachers. Yeah. But I had a very wonderful, wonderful career in early childhood. And this just made me feel so phenomenally wonderful to hear what you're doing, because my hat's off to you. It's a very worthwhile cause, and it is so meaningful for children. I mean, it's the way every school should be. And of course, that's not going to happen in our culture. Right. But I wish you all the very best. Believe me.
Thank you so much. That is so nice. I'm so glad you got on the meeting.
I'm so glad too, because you've said everything. I want to hug you.
Oh.
It was wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. And I wish you the very best. Okay.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. That's so nice.
if anyone would, you know, feel more comfortable with putting a question in the chat, that you can totally do that too. Like if you're not ready to come off camera and talk, totally feel comfortable with putting a question in the chat. I'll just type a message in here so you know where the chat is in case you're not familiar. So we actually were working on a frequently asked questions document this week that might be helpful for us to go through some of those questions. Maybe there's some things that, you know, you guys hadn't quite thought about. We also have an FAQ that we've produced, you know, to share with people. So let me see, let me pull that up. Just wanted to go over some of those. Actually, you know what, before I get into the FAQ, I think this is something that's come up a lot, which is when people sort of asking us about our timeline for, you know, and our milestones and where we stand with actually opening the school. So actually, I think it would be very helpful to talk a little bit about this. And I've seen it from the perspective of start to finish. So I think I'll take, you know, just sort of walk us through this slide. Let me do a present on this and go to, okay, get, all right, do a present screen. Sorry guys, you know how it is. You got like so many elements going on.
Yes.
On the screen. All right, let's see. Where's the present? There it is. Do a window. Right. And share. All right. Here is not that one. Here it is. Okay. Okay. So like I mentioned, we got started working on this in February by just like surveying our residents in you know, South Orange, Maplewood, and really it spread out to West Orange as well. We got some responses from West Orange. We had about 144 parents participate in the survey. Really helpful to understand what the needs were and expectations were. And then we were just sort of forming a committee and, you know, identifying different locations. In March, we started like really sitting down and writing a project. April was all about, you know, putting that board together, and really just, we went through a lot of work in April. Oh my God, I can't believe what we got done. You know, working on the budget, identifying the values of the school, and incorporating the school as a nonprofit. And then in May, we actually just opened up the doors to start, you know, admitting and enrolling students. So far, we've had maybe 26 applications, maybe a little bit behind, maybe more like 28 now. We have 45 spots in the school. So if that sort of helps you understand where we are, we would really like to be at, you know, maybe 30 kids enrolled to really feel like we're going to have a great year. But it's also possible to do it with a much smaller group as well. So, you know, we are playing with the numbers and seeing where things stand, but the strong enrollment definitely for pre-K through 5. Sorry, pre-K through 4. Back. Stop. Back to the milestone slide. Okay, sorry about that. And then also in May, you know, working with the government, there was a lot of that, right? Because there's a lot of there's paperwork that you need to fill out in order to start a school. So we were doing that stuff as well. Simultaneously, we were hiring. We were looking at hiring Sam, hiring a director, and hiring teachers. That really wasn't on the May slide, but in June, we actually, you know, the beginning of June, we actually announced our hire Sam, and Sam has of course been working on hiring teachers. So all of that, the teacher hires are going to be announced very soon. We're also working on signing the lease on our space, which is at 111 Irvington Avenue. There's this really beautiful old church building, church school building rather, that has an entrance on South Orange Avenue as well, at 136 South Orange Avenue. And for about 70 years, it served as a site for a preschool in South Orange that shut down in June of last year. And so we would be taking over the space there. It's a really beautiful space built in like 1928, really incredible woodwork, you know, so much sunlight. It's just, you know, lots of windows. Really just feel really excited about getting in that building and making it our space. In July, we'll actually be doing some renovations in the building, you know, and purchasing supplies and furnishings and working on fulfilling the health and safety requirements that the state requires. And then August, really working on those nitty-gritty details, like setting up our IT systems, MIS, financial management systems, and classrooms and stuff, and moving in. So we've been really determined and working really hard to get things going along the way. That's to give you an overview of, you know, what we've been up to. And I wanted to share with you guys as well the some FAQs. Let's see, where is that presentation? FAQs in there. Okay. This is a presentation that some of you guys may have received when you signed up for the event. So you may have seen some of this, but for those who didn't get a chance to see it. Some of the issues that have come up so far have been, and I'll take it in, you know, sort of order in which they've come up for us, have been big question about whether or not we will accommodate learning differences. And I think, Sam, you know, you can definitely address that like head on, and would love to hear your, you speak to that.
Sure, learning differences. Yeah, I mean, there's such a range for what that even means, and so often the learning environment plays a really big role in a child's success, their academic success, and but so I think it ultimately comes down to an individualized approach, kind of like, you know, we were saying with, even just with Jeannie and her kid, that, you know, sometimes extra support is really needed, and we want to have enough special ed teachers on the staff that instruction can be differentiated in ways that are supportive in really nuanced ways. But I think the answer, of course, is yes, right? I think learning differences often, you know, often there's so many strengths for kids who learn in different ways, who think in different ways, who just don't fit into like the particular box. And we want to, you know, create a lot of sort of pride around that. And we want children to not, we want to not come from a deficit model, essentially, to come from the model of we're going to build off of strengths rather than responding to places where we see challenges.
Yes. Okay, thanks for addressing that. That has definitely been a frequent one. Questions about COVID, you know, about our policies and procedures with respect to COVID, that's come up quite a bit. And it's interesting because, you know, what we know is that, you know, our independent schools locally have been able to operate successfully without, you know, in person for the entire year with unvaccinated children, most of the year with unvaccinated staff. So that is what we're expecting. We're expecting to follow the same policies and procedures as other independent and parochial schools. My parochial school was also, you know, we had a great year. You know, we had 0 outbreaks at school. So, you know, we are looking forward to, you know, and definitely monitoring the situation, watching what all the state requirements are, and, you know, we'll be able to implement those in the classroom. And I feel very confident that we'll be able to do so safely. It's also, of course, encouraging to hear the governor saying that that's what's going to happen within the public schools. And I certainly hope so. For next year, I hope that they will see what's happened in independent schools and realize that this can be done, even in parochial schools that are, you know, have a lot more larger classes and a lot more kids in the classroom. They were successful this year at, you know, being in person. So I'm really encouraged by that. I just want to pause and let people have an opportunity to jump in. You can raise a hand if you have a question or not. Also, don't feel pressured to do so. All right, I'm gonna keep walking through the questions, like raise your hand or, put a question in the chat if you want to do so. Financial aid. Yes. Will you offer financial aid? Absolutely. So we, since we have had so many things to take care of this year, it's interesting that, the fundraising for the school has actually been like one of the lowest priorities of what we were trying to do, which is just get the school open. But, our generosity as a board has led us to say, like, we're actually going to provide, scholarships for people like out of our own pocket. So, we are really encouraging people who want to apply for financial aid to step forward and let us know. And I'm so excited that 2 families actually did so this week. Because first we were like, what is going on with these people? They don't need financial aid. So, I mean, which is great. I mean, it's great if people don't need financial aid, but it's also nice to see that, like, people step forward and have started to step forward and say that they needed it. And, Sam and I were just discussing that it's, we have space in the school and we want, a vibrant school community, and we want to make this a possibility for families. So, yes, there's absolutely financial aid. Just to go over what the cost of the school is without financial aid, is $19,500, and that's for tuition. And then there's this $1,000 building fee, which is essentially what we're using to be able to help us renovate and open the space. Oh, great, new person, awesome. So let's go in. Hi, how are you, Erica? Nice to see you. So I was just discussing the tuition costs for the school and fees. So the building fee, which is a one-time fee, only needs to be paid the first year, and also a $300 activities fee. So that takes care of the cost of the school. But with financial aid, which originally we had only planned to offer the aid to people who had applied early, but we now realize that people are finding out about the school later and still needing aid. So it didn't make sense for us to just be like, oh, you can only get the aid if you applied in June, when you never, if you applied in May, you didn't even hear of the school. So, we want to be flexible and we want to be able to help people. So, so with financial aid, we're capping tuition at $15,000. That's what we can offer right now is $15,000, but like we really hope to be able to bring extra money into the school. So even if for the first year it's 15, like we really think that once we get going and can raise some money, we can really drop that even lower. So yeah, those are thoughts on that. And to apply for financial aid, we're asking people to submit 2 years worth of tax returns. And we would review and make a decision based on that. Pause and let.
Is lunch or recess going to be the same time for the entire school, or are you going to do it like different grade?
That's a great question. I think lunch should be together because I think that's a really nice time to sort of all gather. And I'm very, very big on community building and building a really strong community in the school amongst all the kids, not just who's in your grade. Recess is like, I think, and I'm coming from a nature school, but I really think kids should be outside a lot more than just one outdoor recess time per day. So I see the kids going outside a lot to play, to do research, to do classes, so it's not going to be the model of where you get 20 minutes of lunch and then 20 minutes of recess and the rest of your time is inside. But I think if for kids who are going outside in our little sort of outdoor area that's attached to the school, that is really we're gonna have to think more about numbers just because it's not such a big space. But again, I also think kids should be outside in all kinds of weather. So I believe in really good gear. And that, even if it's cold or snowing, kids should be out engaging with it. And if it's raining, unless it's pouring, but there's really good gear out there, so kids can be outside in all kinds of weather. So sort of a long answer to your question, Jeannie, but
what is PE like for the kids? What are they going to be doing PE?
that's a great, yeah, I think in the early years, certainly it's going to be more integrated into the day, right? I don't imagine, I don't know, I think that's TBD at the end of the day. Like, tons of physical movement. Like, as far as I'm concerned, kids don't need to sit very much. So tons of movement, tons of playing, and productive play, and organized play, and child-led and teacher-led. But I don't think we're going to have sort of a PE class, at least the first year, right, Callie?
We've been talking about really just integrating movement and play into the day of the school, so that it's not sort of a separate breakout, but that so you can break that time period up, and it can be, just interspersed throughout the day and integrated into, what you're doing. This is all like the integrated curriculum model is something that's new to me. I've actually learned a lot about it from my fellow board members, and and also from Sam. So I'm excited to see this at work, and I just know that like movement is just so crucial for the well-being of children. And I know that was one of the issues that my daughter had this year was being in a parochial school environment really limited the amount of movement that she was able to do, and it really affected her social emotional well-being. So I'm excited. It's actually one of the motivating factors for me to work on the school, is that I just find like the district's 20-minute recess, 20-minute state mandated recess. That's tough. That's really tough for me. I mean, I'm a child of the 80s, so the 80s and 90s. It's like not. It's hard for me to just wrap my mind around a 20-minute recess period. I love talking to Sam too, but I'm gonna be quiet for a little bit and let people think.
Any other questions? We can, and again, please feel free to email me, and we can talk, when it's not being recorded, or, in more in detail about your particular child.
Okay, so in terms of other FAQs that we had listed here, Sam, you touched on the New Jersey Department of Education learning standards. Will you be following those, and will you be accredited? Right, so we touched on that we aim to gain accreditation and standards. Staffing and hiring. Where are you with staffing and hiring? Another very common question.
Right. So I've interviewed just a lot of really, really wonderful people who are really, really either have been doing this for a long time, or I've interviewed a couple teachers who have been in a public school for the last 20 years. So they really experienced the changes that happened over the last 20 years. And that sort of push down that started from the top, and now they're sort of locked into something that they didn't get into teaching for 20 years ago. So we are going to hire, we're going to, sort of make offers and extend contracts by, what is it, the 26th, Callie?
That's our goal. We might need to push that back just a little bit because we need to assign, salaries for teachers. So yeah, it might be a little bit later this month, but by the end of the month,
Okay. But as far as I'm concerned, the choices are made. It's going to be a really, really incredible group of educators, and yeah, we just need to lock it in.
Ooh.
I know.
Exciting. Exciting. All right, another pause for you guys to think about what you may want to ask. In terms of some other things that you may want to know financially, I was just thinking about this. It was about the sibling discount. We also have a sibling discount at the school. So it's 10% off the tuition for the second child and 25% off the tuition for the third child as well. So try to improve affordability that way too.
Just a quick question, because I'm thinking about this for not this September, but for next September. When is a good time to kind of engage with you about that? I know this is, of course, too early.
I think in general, enrollment for the next year starts in January.
Okay.
So that's sort of traditionally how I've always done it. So yeah, if you reach out in January for the following year, that you'll be in a really good spot.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sam, I wonder if it's worth talking a little bit more about the pre-K program, which we haven't really talked much about publicly, since us hiring you has really enabled us to be able to add this program, because it wasn't something that we were sure we were going to have someone. I mean, you bring this dual certification, so it just sort of makes a lot of things possible. Can you talk a little bit more about the program?
Sure. So I talked a lot tonight about the project approach, and sort of the precursor is sort of what Betsy was saying about the Reggio approach, which is a very child-led, project-based approach to learning. So we really want to implement that as much as possible in our pre-K. And the person who I have in mind to teach it has a really strong Reggio background. And so it's a model where teachers pay really close attention to the kids. They take a lot of notes, they make a lot of recordings, and they go back and they listen and they analyze and really try to figure out where the kids' questions are, where their interests are, and places where they want to learn more. And then studies are created with the kids so that they can research more and learn more about whatever subject it is. So I've worked in a lot of really strong Reggio programs over the years, and have seen it's amazing what 3 and 4-year-olds can do when they're given the support and they're given the opportunity. The learning is so rich, but their level of engagement is so rich, and what they can accomplish is sort of astounding. I've had parents so many times over the years say, I can't believe kids can do this, but they really can. And we're not talking about sort of decoding words, or we're talking about really bigger things that they're comprehending and absorbing and retaining and then processing. And so we want to really embrace that approach. Everything is play at that age. There's a really strong, but I actually think this throughout, from pre-K through 5th grade, a very, very strong value placed on creating community, on social emotional support, on how do we resolve conflict in ways that you feel heard and the other people feel heard. How do we identify our feelings and express our feelings? How do we listen to other people's feelings and respond appropriately? How do we just sort of building that understanding that we're all connected? Like I sort of talked about the ecosystem of the pond and how everything depends on everything else to survive. We sort of want kids to feel really safe and secure in terms of their own, relying on other people and expressing themselves and sort of feeling free to be who they are. And again, I think this should extend right through 12th grade, but that we resolve conflict, using nonviolent communication and responsive reparative, restorative practices. And this is all taught and it's modeled. The teachers really create a culture of mutual respect. So that means I respect your ideas and your work and your feelings and your thoughts. And that creates an environment where then children really learn how to respect each other and support each other. So I'm excited that we're going to have a pre-K. I think it's, I love that age group. I think it really sets the foundation, pre-K and K, for how you're going to feel about school moving forward, and really just creates that strong foundation for future academic success. So I'm glad we're moving forward with that. Betsy likes that.
Is that going to be taught in fourth grade too? I mean,
Yes.
I feel like like what you mentioned, because my son is in public school with 30 students in each class in Livingston, but like it's not taught at all.
No.
So this is great to hear that.
Yeah. I in many ways I don't know that there's anything more important than that. Like, we know
Yes.
that feelings impact your ability to learn, right?
Exactly. I agree.
And
I'm a developmental behavior pediatrician. So what you're saying, like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Yeah, so I know that's like very important. It's more important than grades and test score, right? I just don't want a smart child who's unhappy. So what you mentioned is like, it's number one.
Yeah, you speak the language. Yeah, it is number one. And it starts, I really think it starts with me, right? I need to make sure the teachers feel really respected and heard, and that they feel like they have a voice, and that there's a really strong connection between all the grown-ups in the room, right? And then that extends to the kids. But it's also, and this is something I pay really, really close attention to when I'm interviewing teachers, is how they feel about children, like really sort of in their heart. Do you believe children like have something to say, first of all? And do you want to hear it? And do you think that they deserve to be treated in this way that is highly, highly respectful of whatever they have to say, including areas that are challenging, including conflict management, and really teaching here's how you express yourself, and here's how you listen to someone else, right? And yeah, these skills are crucial for success later in life and for just a happy life. Like I said this in the last info session, but one thing I say to my own children a lot, especially my older kids, is your life is so much richer and so much more meaningful when you share the good and the bad with other people. Like, that's really important, to not keep things in. And if we have a school where we're having an all-school morning meeting every day where people are sharing, where each class is having their, either opening or closing meeting, and that culture is created, kids feel really safe. And I've just seen time and time again that kind of sharing as the year goes on becomes very intimate and very vulnerable, and the kids learn so much about themselves, but also what they deserve and who they want to be and how they want to express themselves. So yes, absolutely, that's the culture of the school as far as I'm concerned. That's sort of the heart of the school, no matter how old you are.
That was really nice.
Yeah, that's great. It's great that you understand the whole child, the 360, everything. It's not just grades, which to me, like, grades is, it's important, but it's not as important as him being happy, enjoying school. Because I mentioned earlier, he does so well in terms of testing, but he's starting not to like school because he's like, it's too easy. Why am I going to school?
Yeah.
So, and so he's not trying, because he doesn't, how it is. They just go and sit, and they're not exploring, not, they're just reading, but not trying to correlate that with like real life. So it's great that you mentioned all of that.
Yeah, I've been reading a lot recently about sort of more academically rigorous public school programs that are really heavy on testing and rote memorization, and just sort of the mental health of the
Yeah.
children in those
It's
environments.
stressful. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the opposite for me when I was in school growing up. I was type A and everything, and my kids were like, that's not important. I mean, it's important, but their well-being, their happiness is more important than getting good scores and going to the best academics, more intense school. It depends on the learner. My son is not that way. He's it's like he's different. He thinks school is easy now, but he can make it harder, but he doesn't know how to make it harder.
Exactly.
He doesn't know how to challenge himself now.
Yes.
Because he always does well in school.
Yeah.
And there's no one to tell him how to make it more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So, just like your son, like when you were saying that, oh, wow, I'm like, that's my son now, and he's only 9.
Yeah. No, I really understand that. And and why they wouldn't know how to make it, more challenging. But it's such a gift in so many ways, right? To and to experience what it feels like to work hard. Feels like, I also say this to my kids, is like, that actually feels really good. Like when you're stressed out, it doesn't feel good. But if you feel like you're really engaged and working hard, like that's a nice feeling. And it's one we want kids to feel, and they should feel it in school, so it's the experience they should be having. So yeah, good. Thank you so much for all your questions, Jeannie. It's really nice to sort of hear about your son, but also just to hear your thoughts and
yeah, my
the
son is
behaviorist expected.
my son is unfortunate to have a clinician as a mom.
Right.
So I know his strength and his challenges. It's good and bad, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, we'll have to talk more about that. I understand. So, there's my email in the chat.
Sorry, I just put Sam's email address in the chat so that those who want to reach out to her can take an opportunity to do that. The other thing that I would like to do, if you guys don't mind, is ask you to give us some feedback on our info session. Actually, I'm going to drop a link into that right now, and if you wouldn't mind, filling that out, before you forget, and just share with us your impressions. This is really useful for us to figure out how we need to inform people about the school, and what are the specific things that we need to make sure we discuss and think about as we prepare our openings. So I'm going to share that with you now. And like I said, would really love for you to fill that out and help us to really understand what we need to do to make the school be a great place for, a family like yours. So it's 8:30 now.
Okay.
And, if people want to stay and ask more questions, we can do that. But we can also adjourn, and, people can reach out to Sam individually too, if you would like.
Thank you all so much for
Thank
coming.
you very much.
That was really
great.
nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I wish you the very, very best, because
Thank
your
you.
journey is perfection. Keep going, keep at it. What you're doing is a wonderful, wonderful thing for children and families. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I agree. I just came across your school on Facebook. I'm like, what? There's such a school here.
Yeah.
I'm glad you
Thank
came.
you.
Thank you so
Facebook.
much.
Thank you.
you.
Everyone.
Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank
Bye.
you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly, I'm sorry I joined late.